Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jewel. Some of you may have been expecting to see Erica here this evening. She had a work thing, and I'm just kind of filling in last moment. And um, we're going to have a discussion today on the topic of the law of progress. I'm with the Paul and Stephen Spiritist Center, and we're a group of people who get together and study Christian Spiritism together. Um, and uh, we're going to be talking about the topic is the law of progress, and well, usually we open with a prayer or meditation of sorts. So in this moment, why don't we all close our eyes and relax comfortably wherever we happen to be sitting. And I'd like to open our hearts and our minds, take in a deep breath. And with the second breath, I'd like to have you all imagining a ball of white light above your head. Imagine it's full of starlight and God's love. See it sparkling and shimmering as it comes down through the top of your head and down through your neck, down through the trunk of your body. See it, feel it, filling up your heart, moving down to the trunk of your body, down out through your arms and legs, and down out through the bottoms of your feet into the earth. Take another deep breath. And we usually open by saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory now and forever. Amen. So, because it's school holidays and I sort of got this kind of last minute and couldn't put as much time in, I may be kind of winging it a little bit and reading a little bit more from the book because the time was short and the big inspiration didn't hit me like it does usually when I have a little more time. So I may read a little bit from a couple of the books that we have here. And I had some ideas that I'll toss out as I read some of the points. And next time, on the next one, I'll have a lot more time or know that it's coming at least, and I'll do a little more free talking like I did last week on the topic of faith. But this week we're talking about the law of progress. And first of all, seems to be my go-to, I checked Google for the definition of progress, and Google said progress is forward or onward movement towards a destination. And the second definition it had was the development towards an improved or more advanced condition. So I thought that was a good place to start. And I was doing the reading of the different parts today, and I thought just for getting inspiration from anywhere, I said to my daughter, I said, actually before that, I had her while I was making eggs this morning. I had her read to me the material while I was making her eggs, and so. But later on this evening, just previously, I asked her, so okay, for some inspiration. I said, so what do you think, sweetie, about the law of progress now. I just wanted to see what would come out of her mouth. And she said, "Oh, well, humans have to progress," she said. And then I said, "Oh, okay, why?" And she said, "Well, otherwise we'd all be cavemen." So I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, I thought I'd just throw that in there. So just before I read that first point, where uh, the thing I've sort of tried to pick out from the information is all the different um, types of progress. And what I've got so far is that there's a natural progress that you can see all around you in the world, and then there's the intellectual progress, and then getting into the spiritual development, there's moral progress. And basically, the law of progress is a natural law, and that's actually also the divine law is kind of behind that. But um, I'm going to read this first point from chapter 3. We've got books here that we use when we're doing our study together, and this one that I have in my hand here is the Gospel according to Spiritism, and that's what we usually read from. On this particular occasion, before I read the point, there is a heavy use of this book this time. Usually it's heavier on that first book I showed you, but this is the Spirits book, full of stuff I hope doesn't fall out. And we also use this book in our studies. And as I may have mentioned last week, there's a kind of evidence that comes from the spiritual world that we pay attention to in our studies. And in that particular book that I showed you, it's a modern translation of a book codified or put together by Allan Kardec. And there's more information on that this week, in particular on the law of progress that I was able to find, or that is indicated for doing the study this week. And just for fun, I brought my old copy of the Spirits book. I am going to read from the modern one that I just showed you, but this one is done by FEB, F-E-B in Brazil. I think that might stand for Spiritist Federation of Brazil. They might have been the ones who published this one. This is an old translation, and the language in here is for people like me who, this was the first one I read to learn about the law of progress and many other things. The language, the English language in here is old and a lot more sort of high or advanced, lots of more fancy words and grammar. It takes a little bit more time to read it and sort it out, but I really get a kick out of reading that one. But I also like the one that I'm going to use today that has a more modern, relatable sort of translation into English. And but the first point, in terms of progress, I'm going to read from chapter 3 in the Gospel, the first book I showed you, point 19. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph, and then we'll see what happens. So point 19, it says, progress is a law of nature. All beings are submitted to this law. God's generosity sees that everyone improves and everyone prospers continuously. Even bodily destruction, which appears to you to be the end of everything, is only a means of reaching a more perfect state. Everything dies only to be reborn, and nothingness is an impossible state. So, in trying to talk about the law of progress, the things that came up for me were that it's evident everywhere around you. If we start without the spiritual aspect, you can see it in nature all around you, in the stars, on the earth, um, in the progression of a seed. If it gets everything that it needs, dirt and nutrients and water, the seed progresses by shooting out a little tail. It becomes a root and a little sprout that turns into a plant that gives vegetables, or a weed, or a tree that gives shade, fruit tree that gives fruit, and in the babies, human babies, sitting under that shade tree with you, they go from needing all the care and caretaking from their grown-up humans, take care of them, and they go and learn how to use their muscles and progress through a whole bunch of early year learning experiences until they get to school and they start using their mind a little bit more and progress into study and intellectual development and dreams and jobs and all the way through their lives and picking up wisdom along the way. And then, so that's just sort of the natural stuff you see as an example of the law of progress working in the physical world. And it's basically progress in this sense is an improvement from a point A to a point B. And it goes the same for the intellectual progress and development. It's basically getting from point A to point B, improvement from point A to point B. You study and you think and you develop experience and build things, create things, argue with people about things. Yeah, so that's my first thoughts on intellectual development. And on the moral standpoint, we're getting into the whole spiritual aspect, and really progress is ultimately like a promise of things improving, and ultimately total progress is the goal. And we have inside of ourselves compulsion that pushes us forward, pushes us to progress on different levels. That's put in there. Without the spirit, you can, without the spiritual aspect, people who are just coming into that study of the spiritual, or atheists, you can at least see that evident in the examples I gave. But from a spiritual standpoint, we believe that God, excuse me. Speaking of progress, we rearranged my daughter's room. There was a lot of dust, so it's caused a bit of sneezing and lovely things like that. So, but there was progress because the whole room has been rearranged to my daughter's drive to improve and progress her bedroom. So, from the spiritual standpoint, there's God puts that drive in us as well. We'll get to that later. So let me just read this. Did I read this point? Yes, I read that. So then from the Spirit's book, points, I'm going to start with point 777, and then there's some other points. 7, that's in the modern translation of the Spirit's book, 780 to 784, and I may stray from those a little bit because there was more interesting material around there. But So the law of progress in the Spirit's book is one of many laws. I thought I'd just mention in the contents you can see law of work, law of reproduction, law of preservation, law of destruction, the social law, law of progress, the law of equality, law of liberty. That's to do with our free will and freedom of conscience and consciousness and freedom of thought. And ultimately, we get to the moral perfection and the law of justice, love, and compassion. As I said, we're working on the law of progress here, but it's very, very stimulating and exciting information to read. Point 777 in the Spirit's book says, in the natural state, humans have fewer needs and do not suffer self-imposed demands that come with more advanced states. So based on this, some people have suggested that the natural state allows for more complete form of happiness on earth. Is there any truth in this view? This is a question being asked. Allan Kardec put a bunch of questions together to ask higher level spirits, and if you want to have more information about that, you can check out some of our other lectures. But a lot of high level beings gave similar answers all over the world, and so this is a compilation of those. And their answer, what they're talking about right now, is the natural state before we start to progress is our sort of embryonic form or nature, or when we're children, we're in a natural state of happiness. All of our needs are being met and everything. But as we start to progress and reach out and strive to do more, then we have more challenges, and our sort of happiness level goes down. And so some people might think they'd like to stay in this zone of happiness, and that's a better and more perfect state. But the answer here is that is a short-sighted idea, because it's equivalent of saying that adults will be fulfilled with the kind of happiness children have, because it satisfies their basic needs, but that this state, you're not moving anywhere in this state. You're not accomplishing anything, and there is this compulsion I mentioned that we have to progress inside of us, that God sort of stuck in there for us, because it's of that promise that we will improve, ultimately get to a much better, happier state eventually by achieving complete progress. The next question that I talked about already was, do we as human beings find the drive to progress built into us, or is it the result of education? And they are clearly saying in this book that we all develop at different times, but basically that it's an internal impulse that's built in, that causes us to need to reach out and strive to do more than just hang around and have our basic needs met. So question 780 is asking about if moral progress always follows intellectual progress. And maybe I haven't got to talk about the moral progress and the intellectual progress enough yet. But intellectual progress, from what I read previously, is about the mind and basic human desire to learn and create and achieve things. It's also tied into pride and selfishness too. Not everybody, but there's sort of desire to have more stuff, create more stuff, and put your stamp on it, own it, have it. More creature comforts come with more power, and it's just a sort of um, intellectual progress. Uh, the more you know, the more ability you have to do good or do not so good things, and use your intellect to justify things, whether that's good or bad. And um, the moral progress is more tied into what happens to us when we start learning with our intellect. We uh, get to a point ultimately where intellect is always running. We're always learning more things. We're always reaching out and doing more, grabbing more, taking more, imposing more on other people. But when we've done so much of that, eventually we start to get to a point where we start examining the other parts of ourselves, and we discover the spiritual current underneath and start researching that, which I talked a little bit about last week. You can find research on the existence of God, and where we get a lot of our uh, inspiration and study from high-level beings that talk to us through mediums. And moral progress does not um, always follow intellectual progress immediately or at the same pace. And oftentimes we find that a lot's being done on the intellectual level, but the things that go along with the moral progress, like taking care of people and making sure that nobody gets hurt and sharing, all these things don't always follow as fast as our intellectual development. You know, we're speeding along on the whole technology thing and building bombs and using them before we're really ready to deal with the consequences, things like that. And that's one example. But moral progress does come as a result of the development of our intellectual progress. And that's what that point 780 was about. And this second, some of the intellectually advanced, this is part of that same point, some of the intellectually advanced nations are among the most degenerate. How can we explain this? So the answer that has been compiled from all over, with the high spirits all over, by Allan Kardec, is that complete progress is our final objective. But nations, like individuals, progress step by step until they acquire a higher moral sense. They may use their knowledge and resources in inappropriate ways. The moral consciousness and intellectual capacity will come into equilibrium or balance only in the long term. When I read that, of course, I had in my mind Nazi Germany as an example. You know, a whole lot of intellectually developed people who somehow allowed somebody like Hitler to uh, take over and do unspeakable, horrible things. And many of these people kind of knew it was not right, but they kind of went along with it anyway. And so, that's one example I was thinking of. Nazi Germany. I suppose also my country, America. I'm from the United States. I hope nobody's going to get onto me for going into politics, but seriously, we've got somebody there running the show who maybe shouldn't be there because he's kind of, not taking care of people. at the moment, and doing a lot of the opposite of taking care of people and doing a good job of guiding the country. And so, there are a lot of smart people in the States, but still somehow we've got this person who's doing a lot of damage there. Um, at this point, if I haven't named names, I won't name names yet. And so, there are other countries, I believe they're good, progressed, and also uh, backwards or not quite progressing folks in every country. But anyway, those were two. Maybe we should stop there. Nazi Germany and the United States at present moment handling coronavirus, and the rest of the world. We'll just use those two examples. And then, so um, uh, I'll move on to point 781. The question is it possible for us to stop the march of progress? And the spirits say, no, you can't, but you can delay it. You can slow it down. Um, um, the people who, like the one in my country who I didn't name, might try to slow progress down. The spirits say that they people like that will have to account for their actions in the future, but that progress will continue with or without their help, and they will be basically swept away as the rest of the people or the community, the nation, the world move forward because of that impulse that we have inside of us that impels us forward. Uh, because somewhere inside of us we know that if we keep going forward, things will improve. We'll have a better situation, and everybody wants a better situation. And the discussion here, I'll read because I think I just said it, but I'm going to read it anyway. Progress, an imperative of the human condition, allows for no opposition. It is a living force. Bad human laws may block it for a while, they cannot suffocate it. Whenever such laws become totally incompatible with progress, they will be overthrown, along with all the individuals who try to impose them. This will be the situation until humanity harmonizes its laws with the divine justice, which aims at the well-being of everyone, not just the strong. So that discussion after the question pretty much echoes, I think, what I just said. And the next point here, I'm just going to check. All right. The next point here, I actually might. The next point here is I'm going to jump to is 783 actually. It says, does human evolution always proceed slowly? And the interesting answer here that made me think of something else. There is a slow and steady progress that results from the force of things. But when people fail to progress at a reasonable pace, a major jolt, either physical or moral, may fall on them as a way of speeding up the transformation. So I thought of the same person who I didn't name, who's in charge of the United States right now. He's kind of a major jolt. And I also thought of, well, let's read the discussion here. Humanity cannot live in perpetual ignorance. It must arrive at the objective set for it by providence. Enlightenment, we know, comes through accumulated force of things. Ethical, like social revolutions, penetrate the ideas of a people little by little, germinating down through the centuries and then suddenly exploding, overturning the ideas and institutions of the past, which can no longer respond to new needs and aspirations. We often do not see in these commotions anything more than the disorder and confusion that affect our material interests, but anyone who sees beyond his or her personal interests will admire the intentions of Providence, which turn even the most dreadful events into opportunities to create good. They are like the storm, the hurricane, that after the turmoil leaves behind a clean atmosphere. So, as I was reading these before, I got from that, I was thinking the leader of my country. I was thinking virus, how the virus is like a jolt to kind of wake up the whole world to a lot of different aspects of need for progress in a big bad way. And I also was thinking about the George Floyd thing that happened um, just a week or 2 weeks ago, where the policeman, as has happened many times before, used their power to physically take down a fella who may or may not, I think I read he may or may not have had a $20 counterfeit bill or something, and the police went to check it out, and it wound up in his death because of the police officer putting his knee on the neck of this black man who may or may not have committed a crime. I really don't know, but being from that country, and I kind of know how things can kind of go with black people and the police officers and the way that people think there. Unfortunately, there is still a heck of a lot of racism, and the thing I'm thinking right now is how amazing it was that and is that the law of progress seems to be very evident right there, in that this has happened many, many times, but this time it got caught on somebody, a civilian's or a random person's phone, and it has incited movements, or a movement all over the world, protests all over the world, who are saying, look, we're done. It's time to change the way that we think about each other, you know, that we're all equal, we all matter, and that we all need to take care of each other, and to change how the police are thinking and the policies that they're using, and then oftentimes badly, poorly at the moment, and how they need retraining. Statues are being pulled down by people that represent the inequality and the injustice that has been perpetrated upon people of color, including slavery and unjust, immoral deaths. So that's sort of an amazing example of the time that we're living in. The time we're living in right now is so amazing, and it's like time for change everywhere right now. So when I read this about how sometimes Providence or God sends along some jolts to kind of kick us into gear, those are the things I was thinking about. And before I read any more, I have been thinking, I think I better wind this up, but the main thing that stuck in my mind was how, assuming we're already, all of us who are here listening to this at the moment are already good with the whole God thing and spiritual life and working on that, or open to it, I think the most important thing I can think in the moment is that the law of progress is like a promise, as I mentioned earlier. Things may be really, really bad, but the evidence of progress all the time and everywhere gives us hope for moral progress, and that ultimately we will get to a point where, or progress to a point where things are a lot more peaceful, and our challenges are of a different nature. They're higher minded, they're more in the love, higher progress areas, until eventually we will attain a kind of happiness that's much better, even better than when we were kids. And we don't have a choice. It's maybe thankfully it's programmed into us. And it's even stronger than what we discussed last week about faith. When I say stronger, I mean the impulse, the internal impulse. We have the seed of progress, but not only that, we have an inability to avoid it. So progress is a promise. It's going to happen whether we're ready or whether we want it or not. And oftentimes when we're not ready, the good that's coming out of the bad right now is pretty impressive if you can try to have a look at that. It's not good, some of the things that have happened, and very sad for a lot of people, but ultimately social equality could be coming out of this whole thing, a level up. And the planet, maybe, as we've had a chance to see what the planet might be like without all the pollution and the cars running, and it's not fun, the COVID thing, but we've had a chance to see what it's like to not be prepared. And it's been a wild ride, and that information is valuable, and hopefully we take that little bit of information, a lot of bit of information, and progress and be, ready for what comes next, make the next level, bring the next level on, and so anyway, the promise of progress is very exciting. Thank you for the moment we've had together to try and work through this with just a short amount of preparation time for me on school holidays with my daughter home. And the next time I'm looking forward to being able to sort of free talk a little bit more. So thanks for your indulgence and your patience with me today. And if you want to have more information, if you've followed with me this far, you can contact the people on the Facebook page here at the Paul and Stephen Spiritist Center. And there's lots of people to talk to, or to get the books that I was referring to maybe onto those books, or find other sources that we can all point you to if you want to do your own research outside of the sort of specifically Spiritist realm. There's places, there's information out there. And that's all for now. Thanks for bearing with me, and we'll be raring to go for the next time I get to see y'all. And we'll just do what we usually do, is just wind up with a quick little prayer, and so once again we'll close our eyes and take some deep breaths in. Imagine that big ball of God light, starlight above your head again, and see it coming down through the top of your head. Feel it pulsing and sparkling all the way down through your neck and into the trunk of your body, out through your arms. Feel your heart filling up with warmth and love. Feel the light of continuing down through the trunk of your body, down through your legs, and out down through your feet. Feel your heart again. Feel relaxing and love building up inside your heart, and connecting with all those who are here this evening. We would like to thank you, God and Jesus, and all of our guardian angels for the concept this evening of the law of progress. And with our hearts still full of love, we'd like to, all of us, unite our love and spread that out through the city that's tentatively waking up, but with so many uncertainties, attempting to go forward give everyone here the strength to do what we need to do, to move forward, to stay safe, to take care of each other, and to spread some of that out through the whole country to everyone who might be feeling, needing God's love, our love, to be strengthened and to take a big deep breath. And we'll be taking another deep breath as we push our love out through the whole world. We thank you, God, for all of the impulses you give us to progress, for the love you share with us so that we can share love with each other and progress this world into a place where everybody is comfortable and happy and living their passions and their dreams and taking care of each other. Thank you so much for this moment. Thank you so much for your love. Everyone have a beautiful week. Amen. Thank you. See y'all next time.